Friends, welcome to episode 5 of Oh My Goodness with me, AG Smith. So, I'm really excited to dive in today about a topic I get asked a lot about, and this is your inner critic. And it's wild because sometimes we forget we know what we know, right? And I'm sure you have this in your own experience with the things you know, and then you're talking to somebody and they're like, wait, what? Whether that's physics or welding or basketball or soccer. And for me, that looks like inner critic work. And last week, I was at Knutpunkt, which is a LARP conference in Norway, and it switches a Scandinavian country every year. And I gave a talk on embodied tools for learning at their EduLARP conference, and it was astounding. Oh, my heart, right? Have you ever been in a place where you are surrounded by your people that you're just like, this is the goodness we need to know? That's what it was last week. And as I was talking in my speech, I mentioned Barbara. And Barbara slash Brenda is what I lovingly call my inner critic. And I made a few references throughout the time. And at the end, I asked if there was any questions or anybody had any reflections. And somebody raised their hand and was like, we want to know more about Barbara. And I was like, okay. And then multiple other people have asked in the last few weeks. So I'm recording this episode for you who raised your hand at the EduLARP conference asking about Barbara, and for everybody else who's like, wait, we can talk back to our inner critic. Wait, that's not me. Wait, that inner voice is actually not my soul voice. Like, oh, I've got you. I got you. I got you. More like your true inner voice has got you. And I'm just here to explain how. So, with that said, let's take a big deep breath in of just like, oh, there's hope, right? Oh, okay. Shimmy it out, shake it out. Um, Whenever I invite you to shimmy it out or shake it out or take a deep breath, it's because our nervous systems can get activated when we're talking about these things, right? It's easy to talk about an idea, but not let it land in our bodies when it doesn't feel safe. Our role as humans who are growing and learning how to be embodied in different ways is to allow our nervous system to have the capability to take in new information and actually apply it. This is something I talked about in my talk, which when I get the recording, maybe I will upload it here as a podcast because it was fire. Anyways, but the idea is that if we can't get our body, mind, and spirit all online to learn something, it's so much harder to apply it and remember it in the future, which is why I encourage you sometimes to be like, hey, if this is feeling rough or this is feeling big, take a breath, take a break, take a breath, come back, listen again, or send me a message, talk through it. Does that make sense? So just encouragement. If you're reading a book and things are like, whoa, this is a lot, go take a break. Go take a walk. It's when you're taking finals at school or something like that. I had a teacher that's like, if you just can't even think straight anymore, take a 20-minute walk and come back because it gives your body time to process. We often think like, oh, I'm just this soul floating in this body. And other times we're like, oh, I'm just this flesh sack that's just doing life. And it's the far ends of the spectrum don't serve us. Nothing is black and white. And if we get stuck there, we literally get stuck there, which is also what happens with our inner critic. So let's dive in. I'm going to take a sip of my water. Okay. So this, I'm trying to think back of when this kind of came clear. I don't know. It had been at least 7 years ago. Anyways, that's probably less important than the fact that we're here now. When I found out, that's not true. I have always been taught from a little girl that spirit was within me, that spirit is the still small voice within me. If you're not Christian, don't worry, just stick with me. Is a still small voice within that I can trust, right? And then I was told that the devil was like whispering in my ear, like always trying to lead me astray, or that temptations were always there around every corner. Each faith has goodness to share and give. Each faith has downsides of things that it shares, right? And so I grew up having this back and forth of my desires are given to me by God, and also my desires are going to waylay me into hell. And that is a weird dichotomy to hold both. And in one part, I grew up learning that I was stitched by hand and dreamed up by God, and also that my body was bad and that my heart was deceitful above all things. So it's like this weird back and forth, right? So when I got to college, as I kept learning spiritual things, fast forward years, I started discovering that every person I met had that voice, if they dropped down deep enough, that felt like a still river or like a creek bed that was like, hello, hi. If everyone is spirit breathed, and this is my kind of filter of where I'm at now and my thoughts on the world, if everyone is spirit breathed, then everyone has that essence of you're worthy of goodness, you are loved. I'm glad you're here, you're made on purpose. If every person has a soul and every person is not a mistake, then that means that that core essence of you is good, is inherently good. And I will die on this hill. And so once I realized that our soul is good and that still small voice lives in everyone, if we get drop enough low enough to hear it, then I was like, then who's this bitch in apartment 3 that keeps yapping her ear off at me? Sorry for swearing. And I was like, oh, this is our inner critic, because I've heard about it. But then once you put the name on it, it changes things. When you're like, oh, that's not me. It's not me, because it was me for so long. And as I started doing meditation work, I could, and like archetype work, I was like, okay, let's put faces on things. If you read No Bed Parts, I know I reference this all the time, but like really Richard C. Schwartz's work, Dr. Richard C. Schwartz, his work is life-changing. And I talk about it all the time. I use it in my work. Parts work, it's it's the best. Anyways, I was like, okay, so this is a part. This is a voice that is a conglomeration of different things, of stories I've believed that other people have told me, of insults, of stories society has handed down, right? Of who a woman should be, how a good Christian girl should be, how an American should be, how Western culture should be, fill in the list for whatever it is for you, right? We all got these recipe cards of what it means to be a proper XYZ. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, okay. And I don't know if it was me or somebody else. I think it was me, because I think I let an inner critic tent. I was like, let's put a face to it. And so when I closed my eyes and I was like, what does it look like, this person that's saying all this in my head? And here's the thing that happens. A lot of times the voice in our head sounds like somebody we love. Sounds like a family member or a teacher or a person in power or in charge. And that may be true. We may have heard or learned some of these things with them, but it gets dangerous because that person has very real power in our world. You want to strip that power and change it, morph it. So if you can, think of your inner critic. If you're like, AJ, I don't even know what an inner critic is. Great question. Your inner critic is the voice you hear that is rude and insults you and is like, you're never going to be enough. And like, why do you even think you could do this? And like, usually people have about 3, 4 heart wounds. My book Red Thread goes into this more. I will do a podcast about heart wounds another time, so we're not going to get into that. But basically, like these 3 basic ideas that kind of like, oh, straight to the core. When they hit you, you're like, oh, mine are like, you're never enough, you're messy, and you're too much, which is funny because you're never enough and too much kind of go hand in hand. But so this is the voice when I make a mistake or something, it's like, oh, of course you did that. You're so stupid, right? That you think is you, but it's not. What is that voice? Can you put a picture on it? A name, a face, whatever. It could be a character from like a Disney villain, things like that. Some people have like cartoon animals, or they're like, it's like a teacher. Okay, if it's like somebody, can we shift it? Like take a dial. If you're watching a YouTube video, you can see me. If you're watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, you can't. But like almost imagine you're taking a dial and you can shift the features to make them somebody you don't recognize, but maybe they still have the characteristics. So mine, my old, now I've kind of got 2, but and I'll explain that in a minute. When I shifted her, when I looked, she was this gorgeous like 50-year-old church lady that's all like wearing white, which I struggle because I wear a lot of color and don't really believe in pastels. And B, white gets stained very easily. I get very excited. So I'm all over the place. White's not a great color for me to use and it to stay pristine. So she wears all white. She brings the good pies that she hand bakes. Her hair's in a bun, right? Like she's fabulous. She's involved in everything. She's got this gorgeous red lipstick. Like she's classy. And then she's like, AJ, that does not line up. That is not what you should be doing. God would be disappointed. Like she'll just go and she'll read me a litany of Bible verses like, but she looks great doing it. And so the shame, shame, it immediately washes over when I think of her saying, because it's like, you're not being a good enough Christian. You're leading people astray. You're which I've heard all of this, right? So like the thing is, we get stuck in our inner critic and listening to it because we're like, but it's true because people have told me these things. Just because people tell you things are true doesn't mean they're true. Just because you read something on the internet doesn't mean it's true. People can write a lot of things. People can say a lot of things, but are they the words you want spoken over to you? Are they prophecies that you want to keep? Are there spoken words? Do we want to give them power? I grew up, power have the words of life and death. I've also learned power, words are spells, right? Words have power. Do we want to grant these words this power? And when we don't know that certain words can have power, or that you have the choice on whether or not you want to receive that and embed it into your bones and carve it into your body, you don't know any better. You don't know any better. And you're just like, this person's in a place of power and they're speaking this over me, so it must be true. Oh. And it's so frustrating because that shapes how you show up. And God, I want to cry just thinking about it for how many people I've met. Brene Brown did a study on this, over 10,000 people. Did you know that 85% of people have a creativity wound, have a wound that happened that hit their soul in a way in school so much that it changed the way they view themselves, changed the way irrevocably that they see themselves. 50% of those were art wounds, creativity wounds. Just let that sink in. And maybe you're one of those 85% that a teacher said, like, what is this? This sucks, or this is dumb, or a student looked over and was like, flowers aren't blue, whatever. And how that shifted things for you. Can you feel that in your body, that like click? It's almost like a pivot, like a cruise ship. And we think maybe 1% doesn't make much of a difference, but over miles, it really does. And so when our inner critic is saying stuff, it's hard to not be like, well, easy for you to say, AJ, you're cute and you have blue hair. Yes, both of these things are true. And the amount of work it took to unwire this, you would be impressed. I deserve gold stars. I've given myself gold stars. I don't need you to give me gold stars. But I'm just saying, this takes work no matter who you are. Everybody has layers. Anybody who says they don't have layers is either lying or, I don't know, maybe a psychopath. But the thing is, we're not comparing inner critics. That's not the point. And we do that sometimes with trauma or mental illness or neurospiciness or experience where, oh, well, my inner critic's not as mean, so like it's not that bad, so it's fine. Is it fine? Is it? Because if you want to change it, you can. If you don't like how a story feels about the story you're making up of the person you are, you can change that. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you that before, because I've said that a few times lately and people look at me like I grew a third eye. And I'm like, you know, you can have this, right? Like you can have goodness, but we're not taught this. So I'm saying this just in case you don't know this, because you deserve freedom. You deserve goodness. You deserve spaciousness in your mind and your body so you can listen to your soul. Okay. Back to my soapbox, back to my other soapbox. Inner critic. Welcome to podcasting with me. Okay, so we've got our inner critic, right? And alongside that, we've got an image. Now, what's their name? And you can talk to them too. And also, your inner critic can take up the space that you allow it. So if you're just like, oh, they're about to run roughshod, just be like, whoa, AJ said, you have no power here, but like, hey, what's your name? What do you want to be called? See what happens. See what shows up. If you're like, this is opening doors, all this stuff, this is already there, Barbara. I also tell people who aren't listening to me or like not, who are like, I also use Barbara and Brenda as like a second hand short term for people who assume the worst of me, because that's been my experience, right? So, which if your name is Barbara or Brenda, like I know a couple Barbara and Brendas that I do love. So this isn't on you. This is just there's not very many of you, so I feel less worse using this. And also, this is what my inner critic said, so it is what it is. Sorry in advance. Anyways, some people are like, this is like you're giving it power. Are you, or are you shining light on a voice that is doing damage for years? Right? And I think this is really important to keep in mind when we're doing this work, because so many people are like archetypes or XYZ or parts work, or then you're labeling things, and then you're like what is it? What's the thing where you split like a, you know what I'm talking about? Schizophrenia or something. And when people are so quick to judge a tool that gives you language for what's actually happening in your body in real time, and the way that your mind is trying to sort out the stories you've been told versus the lies that you've believed versus your soul's truth versus spirit's whispering versus the ideas that you just have to do in life, that is a lot of sorting that, if you don't have the language to do, just feels like a very messy, yucky spaghetti mix in a ball pit in the Sahara. Hot, messy, and gross. So before you're so quick to judge, if you're like, oh, I can't, maybe that's your inner critic not wanting you to have any power over this situation. Just try it out. So that's the last I'm going to say on that. So we've got our inner critic. We've got a personality. We've got vibes. What are they wearing? What do they look like? Where are they? Maybe they're in like a building or a place, or maybe it's like a field. It's usually not like a black canvas and then just like a person there. Maybe it is, but I'm just saying, I've run through this experience with, gosh, over 500 people now by now. Yeah, at least. And so on average, it's like, okay, I'm in this room and this is this person, da da da. So we've got a name. If they're like a human that you know, switch it, shift it, however you need to be something else, something new. Okay, we got a name, we got a personality. And like, if you want, here's the hard part of it. If you're like, AJ, I'm already a fragile potato, don't do this part. But if you're like, oh, I've got resourcing, I feel grounded, I feel good. Resourcing is a reference to not letting our nervous system get blown out when we're doing this work. So maybe you feel like, I need a soft blanket. Hey, I'm driving, I need to listen to this later. That's okay. But like resourcing is just like, hey, do you feel good, safe enough to do this? And if you're listening and you're like, safety doesn't matter, da 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 da, this isn't about like harm, bad safety. This is about nervous system safety, which is kind of a different language of if you feel activated or not. This is different than, okay, I know I'm going on tangents, but when I feel spirit be like, hey, by the way, mention this, it's usually for a reason. Somebody listening to this is having this question right now in real time. So I'm talking to you. If you're like, AJ, this doesn't apply, stick with me and this will give you extra language too. Triggering and activating is a whole other conversation. But a lot of times when our nervous systems get triggered, it's because they've been activated and then it gets pushed further or something like that. That's a whole other conversation. But when I'm talking about safety, it's like, hey, can we stay rooted in our bodies so we don't need to fight, flight, freeze, fawn? So I hope that helps to understand what I'm saying when we're like, hey, are we feeling resourced enough that we can do this inner critic work of being like, hey, what's the name and face, without being like, and like shutting down and spiraling. Because when I was deep in my burnout, my inner critic and fear and shame were so loud, it felt like it was screaming in my brain all the time. So I'm also coming from this perspective of like, some days you do not have the capacity to do this work. Other days you feel great. Like today I can be like, Brenda, no. But there were times that I would think of Brenda or feel that like, man, how dare you teach this? Ba da da da. And I would just spiral and I would cry and I would go in my room or take a hot bath and I would just sob. I would just sob and be like, I'm trying to do my best for these people in this world and these women in my red tents. And then I'd have people being like, you're leading devil witch circles. And I'm like, I'm not actually. You should see, you should see what's happening in red tent when women feel seen and heard and loved and like they belong, right? But it was this back and forth that I had to do. I had to do that work. So that's the perspective I'm coming here with. So it does count. It does count you feeling safe and good and loved and seen to be able to stand in your ground and say, inner critic, no, no, and putting a name on it, because it's not you. Your inner critic is not you. If you take anything from this conversation, take that. I'm going to take a sip of water so I don't keep crying. Okay. Let's get back into it. Okay, your inner critic. Now you're like, cool. Now I have a name for the voice that haunts me in my dreams. Great. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you here. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a spell from a certain lady, she who shall not be named. She had a spell called ridiculous. And when she casts a spell, if you don't know Harry Potter, there's bogarts, and they take the form of whatever you fear the most. And the spell to get rid of them, or to like show their true form, quote unquote, is ridiculous. And so we're going to make your inner critic ridiculous. This is also why we shift it so it's not a real person that you know, because you might feel bad and weird about doing this. Um, in the movie, like one guy, his is like an angry teacher, and then when he casts a spell, the angry teacher then is dressed up in his grandmama's clothes. Somebody else had like an angry clown, and then it turned into like a Jack in the Box, I think. Somebody had a spider, and then the spider was on roller skates. You kind of get the idea, right? So when I cast ridiculous on Brenda, Barbara, she oh, I feel so terrible, but not really. She turns into a 70-year-old lady who wears a tan stained muumuu. Obviously, no color in the muumuu at all, because I'm here for the muumuu. I'm here for like the fabulous flowy clothes. Like, if you've ever seen a picture of me, you know I'm like, but does it twirl well? So she's in a tan stained muumuu. She only watches 90 reruns of Jeopardy, and the only food she brings to a party is stale fruitcake. She's definitely so much fun. She's a little bitter Betty, really, is what it gets down to. And she's lonely and she's afraid. And she also knows lots of Bible verses. And like, let me just caveat here in case somebody's like, AJ, you have a lot of like Bible verse stuff here about Christians. Like, do you hate Christians? No, I don't. And also, I grew up evangelical. And so this is a lot of my embedding and my training in different things. It has taught me so much in things I love and cherish. And also, I've had to unwire some like toxic theology, both and of it, right? I'm here for being paradox people, and I'm here for holding the both hand. If you can too, let's keep going. So when I talk to her about what I do, and she's just like, oh my gosh, and the women are, you're disappointing God and you're letting God down, and this is a, but like she'll just go. And I'm like, Brenda, A, you need to sweep your home. B, this is so dusty. Like, let's open up some windows first off. Vanna White is great, but like, did you know there's new episodes? So like, let's, and I think that's like Wheel of Time or Wheel of Jeopardy, Wheel of something. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, and she refuses. I'm like, if you want to go have fun, you let me know, because I'm living my best life. I'm having fun. I'm feeling alignment. You need a shower. You are not. And it makes this power difference where I'm like, oh, okay. You're not actually living a life aligned to what I desire, right? Brenda, OG Brenda in the white that looks marvelous. I'm like, I want to be, like that's what I used to want to be like. And now I'm like, I would like the ability to wear a white pantsuit and not worry about ruining it. But also, that's also not what I desire. But when I look at my ridiculous Barbara, I'm like, I really don't want that. I don't want your advice at all. Actually, if you need some TLC, you let me know. You can live better than this. Does that make sense? How it's like draining the power of like, okay. So now when I hear Barbara going, all I see is my sad moo friend. And I'm like, oh, do you need snacks? Do you need some grapes or something? I can hire a massage guy for you. Are you okay? And there's pity there. And when you add pity into it, it takes out some of the power of you suck. Does that make sense? Okay, so try that. And if you're like, I don't know how to do this, just send me a message. I'm happy to help walk you through it too. Okay, so that's part one, ridiculously. Part two, and some of these tools work better than others for different people, different inner critics, different times. So just do what feels good for you. The second part of this is the inner defender, right? So we have the inner critic. Now we get defenders. I love this for reasons you're about to find out. If you're allowed to have a person that's very terrible to you inside, you're allowed to have people that have your back. And you probably have people who have your back in real life, but then you're like, yeah, but my mind, it's different. Cool. Add them. Add them. This is your mind. Your mind is like a computer. It's like you're writing a new program. And I don't think people think often of how much they can add to the things. It's a practice. It's a practice. It's all a practice. This is me gesturing wildly about the world, and everything literally in your life is a practice. And of course it's weird. Of course it's hard. Of course it's awkward. Yeah, because you haven't done this before. So can we just take the like, but this is weird. Yeah, because you haven't done it before, right? And the sneaky thing about it is the inner critic and this part of you that's trying to keep you safe for what the inner critic, quote unquote, thinks is safe, will do anything in its power to get you to not do this. Because when you remove the power from your inner critic, y'all, oh, you are emboldened. You are like, I am a sparkly potato. Like, let's get it. Let's go. Let's try it. It's no longer about failure. It's ooh, I have more information. It's no longer about, will I let my family down? Will I bring dishonor to us all? It's, what is possible when I follow my soul? Do you see what a shift that is? And when you start doing things and you start putting yourself out there, yes, it's more vulnerable because you're like, here's my soul world, but you're taking more risk, you're doing things, and like that's a whole other conversation. That's a whole other layer of like what that looks like to interact in the world. But it's a different ballgame. And if we've kept ourselves safe this whole time by being in this tiny little box, it's like the blue, like I'm blue itself with a blue little window. Like if you're just like this tiny little box that you never go out of, and now you're like, I could go out of the box. It's like having a hypochondriac as your inner critic that's like, we can't do any of this. And then if you're like, actually, I'm healthy. I could go outside. And then you're like, there's a whole world out here. Anything is possible, right? Like it changes how you show up and see yourself in the world. It's so cool. So I'm just saying, if there's resistance, it's your inner critic trying to be like, no, do not pass go. Do not collect $100. But if you sink low enough to your inner knowing, your true voice, you'll hear that there is freedom here, right? I just, man, if even 3 people who listen to this do this work, their life will change. I have no chill about any of this work. So also, side note, if you're like, AJ, my true inner voice, let's pause for 2 seconds. If it's loud and it's like, you got to do this right now or else like da. Hello, fear. Hi. Fear is like a 12-year-old child that thinks they know everything and is also trying to make you not miss your exit on the road. Fear is like a hardwired body thing, but also can get out of hand. So if you're just like, oh, hi, fear. Thank you so much. I don't need you right now. Please go watch a Disney movie. Just swipe. I don't know if it's swipe left or swipe right, but just swipe. Swipe no. If it's like, oh, you could do that, but you're absolutely terrible and everybody hates you and da. Hello, shame. Nice to see you here today. Swipe, not it. If it's like, okay, we got to do this because then these people are waiting on us for this, and then we got to do that because, oh, hello, our expectations of other people's expectations of us. Like, that's a lot. Yep. Nope. Swipe, because half of those things might be true and half of those things might not, but there's literally no way to decipher. And also, like, we're not doing the mind reading thing anymore. We're done with that. Okay. 4 is if it's this is the one that gets tricky, is it's this slow, smooth voice that's like, oh, you did so good in there. Everybody would be so proud of you, except the fact that you completely botched everything because you're an embarrassment to everybody. And you deflate so quickly because those are the lies we believe about ourselves. And it sounds almost like your true voice, almost like spirit, but then it comes in with this like sharp little knife and just stabs you in the gut. And you're like, oh my gosh, down for the count, right? And it's like, you might be laughing in the car because you're like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I had somebody listen to the podcast about corn cup holders, and the woman understood it, and the man was like, you feel like that? And so if you know what I mean about this voice, you'll know what I mean. And if you go below that, swipe, 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 anything that's loud, fast, slimy, weird, has a texture that just feels off. And at the bottom of it, you'll hear the voice that says, hi, welcome. And even if you had a hard day, it'll be like, yeah, that was rough. Let's go shower and go to bed. Even if the things go completely off the rails, it's like, yeah, tomorrow's a new day, right? So at the end of the day, that's how you get to your true voice. back to inner critic. This is a long podcast episode. I hope you're sticking with me because I promise this is all goodness. I'm not saying fluff. Okay, so your inner defender. So that's how you know this is the good work. You got your ridiculous inner defender time, because sometimes even when we take away that power, there's still that voice that's like, sometimes that voice is so quick and so witty. I'm like, could I have a half of this wittiness in my day-to-day life? You know, some days you have those days where you're feeling super witty and you're like, oh, I'm on top of it. And other days you only feel witty at like 9 p.m. at night when you're like, oh, I should have said X, right? Sometimes our inner critic is on top of it in a way that is kind of terrifying. So on those days, we need inner defenders. Who are your inner defenders? These could be people from literary worlds, fictional worlds. They could be real people. They could be dead people. They could be your pet. They could be anything. They could be blue. They could be violet sky. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It literally does not matter. They don't have to know you. They just have to be willing to speak up. And if you're like, nobody be willing to speak up. Okay. What would Mr. Rogers say to your inner critic? And if you're like, oh, he wouldn't like it. Okay, cool. Maybe it's not even about you. Maybe it's not about you. And maybe that helps. Some people have had to do this. If you're like, well, AJ, doesn't that remove the point? No, no, it really doesn't. Because the idea is they don't get to talk to you like that. There are ways to give feedback and constructive criticism in a way that elevates you, not tears you down, right? It reminds me of the thing, and I hate this so much, when people are like, brutal honesty, and they're like, I'm just brutally honest. I'm like, no, you're just an asshole. You can be kind, honest. You can have clear honesty. You can have compassionate honesty. But brutality, I don't want any kind of brutality in my life. No, no, right? So what if it's not about you? What if it's about your inner critic? If you're like, nobody wants to defend me. I'll come in there with my maracas so hard and just be like, absolutely not. This person is marvelous. Have you met them? Like, go listen to my hype episode if you need to talk back to your inner critic in real time. Like, I got you. And so throw me in there. You can have multiple inner defenders. Grab your mom, grab an auntie, grab your dog. Would your dog be like, oh my gosh, no, right? So like throw people in there. And then if you did the work of letting your inner critic, like what are the things that they say most often? You can go through your inner defenders and be like, what would Mr. Rogers say about this? What would The Rock say about this? What would Oprah say about this? Jen Hatmaker has this phrase that I love that I repeat all the time. And she says, enough people fangirl about me. She's like, but you should really fangirl your friends. And I love that. I love that so much. So I have no chill about my friends. So I fangirl my friends all the time. I fangirl a lot of people, honestly. But what about your friends? And if you're like, my friends wouldn't care, can you just pretend with me for 1 minute that your friends do care? And they would love to defend you. They'll take their little corn cob holders and be like, no, inner critic, you shall not pass. What would Gandalf say, right? So whoever you want to pull in, and then write down in your journal, if you want, what they would respond to your inner critic with. And if you want, here's the next level of it. You can even put this in your phone. And if you're like, why would I do that? Don't worry, I got you. Because part of this is retraining your brain. If we're so used to repeating this story, it's like a script. Have you ever, okay, if you're as old as me, which feels weird to say because I'm only 35, but back in the day, when you went to a movie theater, they went choo choo choo, with and they had this is not helping. the 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 black thing that turns around with the film roll. They would install the film roll and then they'd roll the movie, right? This is just like that. Your inner critic is not doing anything new. They're not inventing anything new. They're really just repeating stories and things that other people have given them. They're only repeating the scripts that you're allowing them to do. Oh, maybe you weren't ready for that mic drop. We'll talk about that another time. Anyways, so if you know that, then we know that we got to get new scripts in this joint. We need to bring in new scripts, new movies to play. So if we've got inner defenders and they're going to start saying other things, it's like you're co-rolling two movies. And if you have the sound waves that are opposite, they like cancel each other out or same. There's science there somewhere that I'm not explaining well. But the idea is that it's going to take time to sometimes get your inner defenders up and moving. And so a cheat sheet is to put it on your phone of when my inner defender says this, or inner critic says XYZ, these guys pitch in. This is what they would say. And you can speak the words out loud over yourself. That's what I did when I first started. And I was like, Kelsey's my best friend. Kelsey would say that I'm not stupid, that I just made a mistake. And I would still sit there crying, but I'd be like, Kelsey thinks I'm cool. Jeremy loves me. I think God has my back. Okay. And then I'd be like, maybe God doesn't have my back, but I think Jesus would like me. This one girl liked my outfit today. Like I would use the tiniest things, right? And I would repeat them back. Now I can, like, now it feels second nature, but it can take practice for a minute and writing them down when it's so overwhelming. If your inner critic has made a whole hurricane, looking at that list to even get a tiny window, a tiny moment of clarity. Because sometimes, oh, this bothers me so much, is when we try these new skills and then we're like, but it's not clear skies immediately. No, because these things take practice. It's a practice, remember? So if your hurricane has turned into just a storm, that is still a win. Can you give yourself the gift of looking at how far you've come as well? Because that counts for a lot. It counts for a lot. And the fact that you're still showing up counts for a lot. So give yourselves gold stars, give yourselves kudos, a maraca moment when you deserve it. Okay. Let me bring it all home for us as we start to wrap up, because I think this is my longest podcast episode yet, but this is a big topic. It's a big topic. Let's all take a moment to breathe. So just take a few breaths. I'm going to take a sip of my water, but just, big breath. Okay. So where do we go from here? As you grow and change, and as you shift into becoming a truer version of you, and if you're like, I'm always me, I understand, but a you that's not completely by your inner critic, your inner dialogue may change and your inner critic may change. So I have Brenda, but Brenda, honestly, even the old version doesn't have as much power over me now that my spirituality has shifted, that the way I see myself has shifted, my priorities has shifted. What happened was when I did this work, I think it was 2 years ago, maybe, I was running a red tent on inner critic and stuff. And I realized I had a different inner critic now. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? And so my new person is a conglomeration of a few different people who were doing stuff that got under my skin and made me doubt myself. Lots of sleepless nights. Anyways. And so when I ridiculous them, they are essentially, they're this pink little Muppet that lives in a trash can in this alley in this Muppet party central place where everybody's living their best life. It's like Muppet Utopia, but they're living in this dark, dank alleyway, subsisting on not daily profits, daily tabloids. What's a Daily Star? Daily Sun? Yeah, there we go. And just eating daily tabloids and being miserable and being like, well, you shouldn't, da. And it's like, well, what? And when I realized that I had a new inner critic, honestly, it was pretty gutting because I was like, I've done all this work to get over Brenda and Barbara. Come on, work with me here. But then I also realized that our bodies and brains want to keep us safe. And sometimes the best way to do that is say, like a mom wants to be like, don't go off of here. Don't run into the street, right? Fear can sometimes grip us and be like, don't run off in the street, because it doesn't realize that we're adults that can think through these things and it's trying to keep us safe. That's maybe not the best analogy, but work with me. And so if we can look at it from okay, these are the things that I'm letting kind of sink in or speak that maybe shouldn't have power. And then it's like, okay, what do I need? We're doing the work again, right? And sometimes it's kind of exhausting. Sometimes you're like, I don't have patience for this today. And sometimes I'm just like, I'm not today. Okay, you'll just chitter chatter over there. And I'm just going to keep my face down and do this work. But when you can be honest about the stories that you are sort of believing about who you are and the work you're doing, it can really freaking suck to be like, this is my monologue saying that I'm a bad friend and I'm never going to measure up and everybody's disappointed. Like, this is what I'm repeating to myself. These are my examples. Everybody's different. But like, that can feel a little defeating. And also, like, damn, you okay? Like, what's up? And there can be, and this is also literally the same conversations I've had in almost every time I've led this, is this is what people are saying too, is like, if I'm saying this about myself, isn't it true? And this comes back to what I said earlier. Just because words are spoken over you or to you, or you're speaking them to yourself, does not make them true. You get to choose what you want to claim, what you want to keep, and how you want to flip or deny or shift any of these things. Because sometimes thoughts will burrow, right? Like they get in these grooves. If you repeat it enough, you get these brain grooves. And it's like mindset work. Like we got to rewire, we got to rethink. Okay, I always mess this up. Do I, or am I learning something new? Oh, you're never going to get this. Okay, well, I didn't get that. Doesn't mean I'm going to get these things. If we can lower the intensity on our inner critic or some of those stories we tell ourselves and then start coming in with like, okay, well, Edison, I think, did the light bulb thing. No. Yeah. Like 2000 light bulbs, something like that. Right. Or like, okay, my friend, I have a writer friend and she writes fan fiction and she has written so much gorgeousness and like so good, right? And she's just writing. It's like, okay, if she can just write and she can just go, I can just write and I can go. Like use other people as evidence, like pile up evidence, look at people in your lives. If you're feeling jealous of people, like, hey, that might be an invitation of something that you want from their life that you want in yours. It doesn't mean that you need theirs. There's enough to go around, more than enough to go around. But maybe use that as an invitation, as evidence of, okay, if they get to have that, maybe I get to have that. Oh, she's happy in her marriage. Maybe I can be happy in my marriage. Oh, she loves her kids and gets to have a free weekend once a month. Maybe I know I love my kids. I can have a free weekend once a month, right? Like we can take this and use evidence from our real world as well to stack up against our inner critic. Because if our inner critic has spent our whole lives piling the stack of evidence of who we are and what it thinks about us and what we're capable of, that's a whole other conversation. We need to start compiling evidence of what is possible and also what's already working, what has already been the goodness in our life. Because we're so quick, man, across the board, my red tents. We're so quick to dismiss ourselves and be like, but it doesn't really count because XYZ. When other people would be like, oh my gosh, I've never been able to do that. So many women do not actually see the gifts that they have been given as gifts, as things that they are good at and are capable at. And they're just like, that's just how I'm wired. That's how I was for a very long time. Like, I'm just, oh man, you lead these spaces beautifully. I mean, it's not hard. Well, actually, maybe it is. Just easier for me. And also, I've been training in this for 15, 20 years now, right? Like, if you can step back, take it in when people say stuff, not brush it off and just be like, yes, thank you. That is something I'm good at. Mama Gina, okay. And now we're kind of getting into the area of like how we grow. So that'll be a different podcast. But I just want to say this one thing. Mama Gina wrote multiple books, and I took her class a couple years ago of boot camp. And she had this thing where when people give you a compliment, she's like, so often we brush it off and we're like, no, not really, or things, but and she's like, you're just like people are lobbing you a tennis ball or lobbing you a gift. And it's like you're taking a tennis racket to a Christmas gift and just smacking as hard as you can. She's like, how do you think that makes them feel when they're like, yeah, but this is true and something I wanted to say to you? And then you're like, no, and you're like smashing it on the floor. And you're not even like Thor, like another. It's just like you're not even appreciating the thing they sent you. You're not letting it sink in because your inner critic's like, you don't deserve that. You're not good enough for that. How often has your inner critic kept you from reveling in a moment or soaking in some goodness that somebody gave you or appreciating what you had done or been? And this isn't a prideful, boastful thing. This is that just like, oh, I got to do this because I was listening to spirit. I was walking in alignment and doing the next right thing. And here we are. And how cool is this that I'm surrounded by my friends? Ba da da, right? Does that make sense? And so she says, when somebody gives you a compliment, say thank you. It's true. And I was like, oh my God, the audacity. Like this, what? Like you can't just say that. Like, ugh, that feels gross. And you know what? I started trying it and it was a game changer. And some people called me names and they're like, oh, rude. And I was like, is it though? Because you just gave me that compliment. I'm just double stamping and saying thank you. I appreciate it. Like, yes, I have worked hard on this. It is true. And they were like, yeah, but you know, and I was like, yeah, but what? Why are you being weird now? You said this first, right? Like it was very eye-opening. And other people were like, yeah, it is true. I'm glad you recognize this. And I was like, yes, you're welcome. My pleasure. And also, it just allowed more space in my body to appreciate the differences I brought to this world, my gifts, and to also be appreciative of spirit and myself and the way I was wired of like, cool, it is working. It's all working. The way I'm showing up, people are seeing it and I'm using it for good. And so every time I get a compliment, it doesn't feel like it's a me thing. It feels like, look, this is evidence that it is lining up and working exactly as it needs to because it's being seen. It's being noticed that the things I'm trying to deliver are showing up in the ways that I desire, if that makes sense. So let me know if you have any questions. I know we covered a lot of ground. Inner critic is a very not complicated topic, but it can get sticky. It can totally get sticky. If you have any questions, come into Embodied in Joy is my Facebook group. Throw your questions there. I think I have different live videos and stuff about this as well. But you're worthwhile doing this work. And if you don't believe me, that's okay. I can hold that belief for you. But let me tell you, the people who have done this work of identifying, shifting their inner critic. I had a guy named Tim. I think the first, because I've done this at Red Tents, but I did this at a conference once, and there was like 150 people there or something. And it was a business conference, and there was a guy named Tim in the audience. He was like 65 something. And he came up afterwards. He's like, I have attended a lot of conferences. And he had tears in his eyes. He's like, I've never known that my inner critic was my dad. And he's like, and being able to shift that and take that power away from my dad and put it into a voice that I could talk back to, he's like, that never even occurred to me. He's like, this has literally changed my life. And so whether you're 15 and listening to this, which like, oh, I wish I had this when I was 15, or you're 80, may this serve you to show up in the fullness of who you were created to be and exist as, and know that you are so worthy of goodness and love and delight, and that I think you are a treasure. So go sing your soul song, go drink some water, eat your carrots, eat your cake, do some twirling, do some laughter, find some joy, find some delight, and let me know. Send me a message, post it in a comment here on Spotify or in Embodied in Joy, or make a Facebook post, share this. Like, I'd love to hear, what is your inner critic? What did you shift it as? How is this showing up for you? Because it's not just about us when we do this work. It's about the ripples, the way this shows up in our life. I talk about soul care and taking care of ourselves because it changes intrinsically when we have language, when we have tools, how we show up in community, how we show up for ourselves, and how we show up for the greater world, right? So, okay, I could keep going on forever. So I love you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, friends.